Sometimes rules are meant to be followed, and sometimes they are meant to be broken. Expect the latter this summer at Tokyo 2020 when it comes to the International Olympic Committee's highly criticized and controversial Rule 50. Quick refresher. The IOC instituted Rule 50, which bans athletes from protests of any kind on the podium or any time during the Olympics. The rule was imposed in the wake of an initial wave of national anthem protests in the US. You may remember former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick taking a knee back in 2016 to protest racial injustice and police brutality in the States. Rule 50 means that in Tokyo, no taking a knee during an anthem, no raising a fist during medal ceremonies, no refusing to get on the podium with your fellow competitor, and oh yeah, no Black Lives Matter apparel. When Rule 50 was first announced, it was January 2020. Everyone knows that was a much different time, and now the IOC finds itself doubling down on a bad decision in some form of prideful entrapment. Since that fateful day in Lausanne, Switzerland, when the IOC's executive board and its athlete commission met, the world has gone through a racial reckoning. In May of 2020, the murder of African-American George Floyd by a white police officer in Minneapolis kicked off protests, which soon devolved into sometimes violent riots across the country. This brought the US to its collective knees for weeks. When the NBA came back from its pandemic pause in July, the political shift was ever apparent. Black Lives Matter was etched across half court as players took a knee during the Star-Spangled Banner. The IOC is going to have its hands full right out of the gate thanks to Rule 50. When the men's basketball competition begins on July 25th, you could potentially have American NBA superstars such as Kyrie Irving, Chris Paul, and none other than LeBron James taking the court. First off, good luck thinking these guys will feel compelled to follow the IOC's Rule 50. James and his fellow multi-million-dollar, internationally known sporting superstars are known for doing what they want, when they want, and could wear Black Lives Matter apparel around Tokyo simply because the IOC has told them not to. British sprinter Adam Gemili already said if he makes his way onto the podium at Tokyo 2020, he will take a knee in support of Black Lives Matter. Gemili, who is a world champion and came fourth in the 200 meters at the 2016 Rio Olympics, isn't necessarily a medal threat, but his stance should definitely give the IOC a lot of worry as a bellwether of things to come. And then there is the world's most controversial swimmer, China's Sun Yang. The Olympic gold medalist is currently waiting for a verdict from the Court of Arbitration of Sport in his second trial for an anti-doping violation, which will determine his fate and if he can swim in Tokyo. The last time Sun got into the pool was the 2019 World Championships in South Korea, and two swimmers, his arch nemesis Australian swimmer Mac Horton and Britain's Duncan Scott, both refused to step onto the podium with him. Sun, who was previously found guilty for a doping violation, would surely see his fellow competitors test Rule 50 if he were to make his way onto the podium at the Tokyo Aquatic Center. Finally, the US Olympic Committee said their athletes are free to protest, that they won't reprimand them if they do so in Tokyo, and get this, athletes may even receive legal support if they break Rule 50. Now, if that isn't hitting back against the IOC's Rule 50, I don't know what is. The most peculiar thing about all of this is the IOC has embraced the Black Power salute flashed during the 1968 Olympics as one of the defining moments of the modern games. The iconic image of two African American sprinters is easy to find on official Olympic websites, and the moment is embraced as a key point in history. It sounds like do as I say, not as I do. The IOC now finds itself stuck between a rock and a hard place. It tried to back its decision with a flimsy poll of athletes, which found that most don't support political gestures during medal ceremonies. Fair enough, but as we all know, when making statements, it doesn't take a lot to take a stand. In fact, it only takes one. Cue the controversy. Tokyo 2020 is going to be a games for the ages.